Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today's story is about the rarest versions of the car which became a symbol of drift racing. Nissan Silvia is obviously rare. It's a Japanese domestic market only model, a niche two-door coupe that wasn't meant to be a big seller. But its handling and performance was so impressive with its simplicity that the later generations became essential tools in grassroots motorsport. And then when the drift pandemic hit, so few of them survived. However, the Autech company was producing their own super low volume versions. So these Silvias were practically collectibles from the moment they were made. But who is Autech, by the way? Autech was founded in 1986 as a subsidiary of Nissan. The company's early days involved a collaboration with the famous Italian design company Zagato. At first, Autech unveiled the new limited edition coupe called Autech Zagato Silvias 1, based on the Nissan Leopard's platform. As you can see, it has little in common with a true performance car. Only 104 units were produced in 1989. Nowadays, Autech is mostly known for factory-made aero kits for various Nissan models. But just after that unusual first concept, Autech created its own versions of Skylines, Pulsars, and other popular Nissan rides, including S-chassis, of course. And we're going back to Silvias. In 1988, Nissan revealed the 5th generation, which immediately became the car of the year in Japan. And it wasn't just because of its appearance. The S13 was one of the first cars built on a new platform that lasted until the early 2000s. It featured McPherson, or double wishbone on the skyline, suspension on the front, and multi-link setup on the rear. All subsequent Silvias, Laurels, and Skylines shared this architecture until 2002. This setup, combined with new engines, made these cars excellent for driving, and it was quickly converted to a motorsport success. And while Nismo division was focused on sports and were responsible for delivering racing victories, Autech was more about adding some uniqueness and craftsmanship to the factory vehicles. In the late 80s, having a convertible version of any model was quite a unique option for a Japanese manufacturer. Autech developed body conversion, and the production was nailed by Takata Kogyo Company in Yokohama. This company specialized in convertibles, and besides Silvia, they made cars like March Cabrio, Figaro, and many more. All the soft roof S13 were offered in top version called K's, featuring a turbocharged CA18 engine paired with automatic transmission and available in only 5 body colors. Well, the performance wasn't thrilling. Automatic-only version, combined with increased mass and weak body rigidity. It definitely wasn't a sports car, but it's never supposed to be. Nissan marketed this car as a date car, or datoka in Japanese, a fancy convertible made to impress a female passenger. Actually, the price tag of 3.2 million yen impressed buyers first, considering the base S13 Silvia started from less than 1.5 million yen. This put it in European imports territory to compete with BMW, for example, which wasn't what Nissan customers expected. So maybe all these reasons were making sense, or perhaps dating activity wasn't popular in Japan back then, but the convertible wasn't in high demand, and unfortunately only 603 units were produced. Let's not forget about the overseas sibling, Nissan 240 SX convertible. These were produced in the US by AMC from factory-prepared coupes from 1992 to 1994, and there were 8,320 units made. The American car had not only different drivetrain, the KA24 common in the States, and front end with pop-up headlights, but also different rear panels. If you look at the rear, you can see the same trunk lid, but the roof just starts in a different place. So even if you put Silvia's front end into a North American convertible, the difference would be noticeable. The next Silvia generation, the S14, was introduced in 1993. Nismo introduced their 270R based on the Zenki model. The car had many signature improvements, including upgraded suspension, unique body kit, and a 50 horsepower boost to the SR20 turbo engine. Only 30 units were produced. If you're not familiar with this car, just check out my video about this ultra-rare Nismo Silvia. Later, after the facelift in 1996, Autech revealed its own S14. The car was called Autech version K's MFT, and it made slight differences to a stock S14, not only externally but technically as well. The exterior didn't change significantly. The main point is, of course, eye-stopping Plymouth Superbird style rear wing. Bumpers and side skirts were the same as K's Silvia had, but the fog lights were different, and you can see Autech logos and stickers all around. New 16-inch alloys were designed specifically for MFT. The car was available painted in 2 colors, and the interior's most noticeable features were a genuine Momo steering wheel, leather-covered gear knob, and 3 1-din gauges, just like older brother Skyline GTR had. The upholstery was also unique, crafted especially for this version. But when it comes to the technical side, that's where the factory tuners really shined. The chassis was upgraded with stiffer shocks and springs, beefy sway bars, new front and rear upper struts, and this time Autech didn't forget about the engine. The output of the second-gen SR20 det increased from 220 to 245 horsepower. The stock Garrett turbo was replaced by an IHI ball bearing 1, the injectors became 480cc as on later S15 models. New exhaust system was made by Fujitsubo, and the intake was improved with a thicker intercooler, but still the tiny one placed in a wheel well. In total, 272 of them were produced, which makes this car extremely rare today. But if you want to make your S14 look like an MFT, you can still find some specific Autech parts for sale, like a Momo steering wheel, additional gauges, and the big wing, of course. So finally, in 1999, we got the last and the most desirable Silvia generation for many JDM adepts. The S15 had a few versions, more or less tuned by Autech. One of them, let's call it controversial. Honestly, when I saw this car for the first time, I couldn't even believe it was factory made. A so-called Ferrari 456 inspired, the Style-A. It had its own front bumper, tail lights, and interior colors. There were no technical features specified for this version, so it was just an alternate styling package. It said that only 54 of them were made, which suggests it wasn't very popular. And personally, I'm not surprised, because I truly believe that the factory-looking Nissan Silvia S15 is one of the most beautiful cars in the world. And moving on, there are 2 versions that are much more exciting. Skipping the S14 generation, Nissan went back to a convertible model, with a little help from Autech, of course. The hardtop model, called Varietta, debuted in 2000 and became Japan's first convertible with an electric metal roof in series. It came with a naturally aspirated 2-litre SR20 engine only, with an output of 165 horsepower and, unfortunately, increased weight, about 220 pounds or 100 kilogram more. So once again, it wasn't a sports car. It seems like with the convertible, Nissan and Autech decided to follow the same date car ideology as the S13. And whether right or wrong, for most people, dating meant prioritizing safety over driving performance. Building a retractable hardtop in the late 90s was a bit more complicated than in the 20s, and it clearly affected the car's proportions. Some say it's not that pretty. Well, in my opinion, there are some angles where this car doesn't look its best, but from most viewpoints, it's still a gorgeous car. And it definitely has personality. Looking back, its shape is one of the things that makes the S15 Varietta so special. With a production volume of 1,143 units, it's probably the most uncommon S15 you'll come across. The Varietta was produced by Autech, but it wasn't called the Autech model because there was another one. It had all the main features of the Spec R top model: 16-inch wheels, lower bars, struts and reinforcement elements, a helical limited slip differential. The engine was a naturally aspirated SR20, but it was tuned up to 200 horsepower, revving up to 7,500 RPM, which seemed like an attempt to challenge Honda, and actually it could. The engine featured increased compression, different camshafts, injectors, racing exhaust manifold, and remapped ECU. The gearbox was the same 6-speed ISIN manual that Spec R had, but with a shorter final drive ratio. It also ran a Nismo clutch with a lightweight flywheel instead of the dual mass one on the turbo car. The S15 Autech version is basically the Spec R model, but with a highly tuned non-turbo engine. The new car's price tag was almost the same as for the turbocharged version, so it wasn't very popular. Only 1,875 Autech version S15s were made, available in just 3 colors. Nissan's SR20 became extremely popular for longitudinal swap projects because of its lightweight, power output, and reliability, and since then, the Autech version powertrain is the most desirable donor option for non-turbo swappers. So moving on to the value of these cars now, I must say there are no revelations. The S13 convertible is a 35-year-old car now, so finding one in a factory condition is a complicated task. This car definitely has a collectible value already, so if you want one, be ready to pay much more than for a coupe version. The MFT was already rare when it came out, so there isn't much representative info about these cars for sale for today. But when these cars were auctioned for the last decade, final prices were about 20 to 30% higher as for regular turbo S14. S15 isn't a young-timer yet, but with only 40k of them produced so far, the Drift Mona Lisa is in high demand. They aren't cheap, but all these cars are still available for purchase on the Japanese market. The price depends not only on the package, but more on mileage and condition overall. However, the price growth of the Autech versions isn't that far off. What do you guys think about Autech modified Nissans? Does the tiny number of units produced show how valuable they were? Let me know in the comment section below. Anyway, want to wish all of you unicorn seekers the best of luck in finding and getting your dream car, even if it seems like an impossible task. Remember that there is nothing impossible out here. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and see you soon.